Bien, regresamos entonces con el profesor Abhijit Banerjee, con quien estamos hablando sobre reducción de pobreza. In your experience, how is the best connection between governments and the micro solutions for fighting poverty? Do you think that governments have been doing a lot to help these programs work, to implement these measures? Or do you feel they put some type of restrictions because of political setbacks that they could get?
I think all three, in a sense. I think governments, in the last 25 years, governments have done, I think have been trying very hard. I think if you look at the spread of the conditional cash transfers, the spread of education, I mean, there has been a huge amount of public effort. And it's not, I think, useful to downplay that. I think the governments in the high days of the Washington Consensus were planning to do nothing. And now I don't think that's the case. I think governments recognize that they have a role to play. Now, having said that, are there things that they don't do because of political constraints? Surely. But are there things they don't do because... But there's a separate problem, I think, which is probably worth underscoring, which is that a lot of the things they do or they don't do are not because of any political constraints, but because they just have either the wrong idea or an unthought of idea or an idea that has not had enough research into it. So they do, many programs are just run badly, not because of any political imperative, but because nobody has done the science of how to design it well.
They never ask the right questions, as you say in your books.
Exactly.
Why is it that the right question was something to look for in the search of poverty? Why wasn't nobody thinking about that before?
Or about most things. I mean, I think one of the things that, I mean, this is why we're going back to your earlier question of some time ago on macro. I feel macro is often an illusion, because we think that we are going to do macroeconomic reform and things will then just work. We have this, and in some sense, that's, I think, the big illusion, that even if I wanted to have free markets are a lot of small things that we do right. Legal reform with the law is designed right. It's not a matter of saying markets are free, go. There's no such thing. Good free markets are sustained by very detailed innovation on how to design specific institutions.
And good institutions. That's what I want to say.
But also, well designed. I mean, good institutions not in the broad sense of let's have free markets. We should have good institutions in the sense of good laws for bankruptcy. Who designs the law for bankruptcy matters. It matters that we get the law right. Because you could have bad law, and as a result lots of property stays in nobody's hands for years. Whereas good law says, if you don't decide something, then somehow there will be a forced negotiation. Because I think there's good laws make a huge difference, but every law is a small piece of detail. So it's not just with poverty. With lots of things, we went with the view that all we need to do is have the right kind of big markers for things. We now believe in private property. But what does private property mean other than a set of well-designed laws? We have to have a sense in which these things are given specific content. That's the most important point.
Most of the governments that did the reforms during the 90s, at least in Latin America, we focused too much on the macro stability, which was of course needed to decrease inflation and stabilize the fiscal aspects. But we never actually made the reforms that, as you said, are going to haunt us afterwards: education, institutions. And it seems that because we're growing at 6%, it isn't necessary to do these reforms. And we're always questioning, academics, we're always questioning how far are we going to go this way, and what's going to happen when eventually we're hunted by the ghosts of bad education, bad institutions, and so on?
That's an excellent question. I don't know the answer to that question, but you're exactly right. There is some sense the growth now might be the benefit of something you did when there was no growth. You did something, it created some improvement. That improvement might take 10 years to start showing up. What that's telling you is that what you're not doing now will show up as reduced growth in 10 years. That's exactly right. I think the fact that the causal channel between what we do and what happens is very weak makes us, that's why we should always do the right things and not worry about if it's manipulating growth up or down 1%, 2%. This is illusion.
Last aspect I want to ask you is about MIDIS, the Ministry of Social Development here in Peru. How can we help the MIDIS in order to be institutionalized? Because we don't want to lose what Mrs. Trivelli is doing about poverty alleviation. I mean, working with tools and rigorously evaluating what we're doing. How would you, or what can we do in order to institutionalize that?
So I think we need to get to a point where, and not we just in Peru, in every country in a sense, where there's a public conversation about the evidentiary basis of policies, where if you're doing this policy, why are you doing it? Let's not just have accountability in the sense, are you spending the money or is the money getting lost? We need accountability in a different sense, in the sense of you have to explain to us why this is, we will take your word for this policy. Why are you spending all this money? Give us a reason to spend it, that you're spending it. I think it would be great to have a culture within which, and that will be durable.
In your experience, do you see in other countries something like MIDIS? Are you seeing that in a lot of countries or in a small number?
It's very unusual. It's very unusual still. I think there is still, there's already a level at which the questions are being asked, which is unusual, I would say. But I think that it is a trend in many countries that people are a bit more aware that it's not a matter of just saying, you know, let's spend money. It's a matter of spending the money right. And I think but I think what you as media can do is get people to demand that. People should demand, why are you doing this? What is the evidence? What's your proof? Why do you think it's going to work? Or have you tried something else? What was the experiment? Well, you know, just ask those questions. That's what you can do. I think that's going to change all over the world. We need people to ask that question.
Thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
I know it's been enlightening for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bien, vamos a una pausa final y regresamos.
Scotiabank